The coldest night of the year fell over the small farming town like a heavy blanket of ice. The wind howled through empty fields, lifting sharp snowflakes and throwing them against every house it touched. Most people stayed inside, safe beside warm fires. But Jacob Turner, a quiet farmer who lived alone on the edge of town, could not sleep. Jacob had been a farmer all his life. He knew every sound his land made, every creak of old wood, every rustle of leaves, every cry from the animals in his barn. But tonight felt wrong. The cold was too deep, too strange, as if the world itself was holding its breath. He sat on the edge of his bed, rubbing his hands together. The old heater in his room groaned, struggling to fight the cold. Jacob wrapped a second blanket around his shoulders and told himself he should try to sleep. But then he heard it. A sharp boom, not like thunder, not like a falling tree. This sound was different, loud, heavy, and close. Jacob froze. His heart beat fast. For a moment he wondered if he imagined it. But then the ground gave a soft tremble beneath his feet and the window rattled. That was real. Something had hit the ground nearby. Then came the second sound. A long, soft cry carried by the wind. It was faint but strange, too high for any man, too soft for any animal he knew. It sounded almost lost. Jacob stood up, grabbed his old lantern, and lit it with shaking fingers. A yellow flame flickered, casting long shadows on the walls. He slipped on his heavy boots and thick coat, then stepped outside into the deadly cold. The air hit him like a wall. His breath came out in white clouds that floated in front of his face. Snow crunched loudly under his feet as he walked toward the barn. The wind whistled past him, as if trying to push him back inside. But he kept going. Something had landed in his fields. He could feel it. When he reached the open yard, he noticed it right away, a glowing trail in the snow. It was thin and faint, like powdered dust lit by moonlight, stretching from the far edge of his land straight toward his barn. Jacob lifted the lantern closer. The trail sparkled as if tiny pieces of metal or glass were mixed with the snow. He had never seen anything like it. The animals inside the barn were restless. He could hear the goats bleating, the horses stamping their hooves, and the chickens making small worried sounds. Something was scaring them. Another soft cry came from inside the barn. Jacob stopped. His hands tightened around the lantern's handle. Every instinct told him to turn around, run back inside, and lock the door. But something stronger, maybe curiosity, maybe courage, pushed him forward. He reached the barn door. The wooden boards shook slightly as if something inside had brushed against them. Jacob took one deep breath, grabbed the handle, and pulled the door open. Warm air rushed out, mixed with the strong smell of hay and frightened animals. The lantern light spread into the darkness. Then Jacob saw it. He did not blink. He did not breathe. His mind tried to understand what his eyes were seeing, but nothing made sense. There, in the far corner of the barn, between two stacks of hay, something moved, something that did not belong on earth. It was large, but also weak. Its body gave off a faint silver glow. And in its arms, it held something small. Something crying. Jacob stood frozen in place, his heart pounding like a drum. This was no animal. This was no human. This was something else, and it needed help. Jacob stood in the doorway, unable to move. His lantern shook slightly in his hand, making the shadows in the barn dance across the walls. The strange shape in the corner stayed still at first, as if waiting to see what he would do. Only the soft cry, small, weak, and frightened, broke the silence. The aliens were not like anything Jacob had ever imagined. The larger one, clearly the mother, had skin that shimmered like wet moonlight, smooth and pale with a silver-blue glow. Her long arms wrapped tightly around a tiny creature pressed to her chest. The baby was small, no bigger than a human infant, but its skin glowed brighter, like a warm candle inside a glass shell. The mother's eyes opened slowly. They were large, round, and shining with fear. Her pupils were thin lines like a cat's, but there was something soft in them too, something human in the way she watched Jacob with desperate caution. Jacob swallowed. Every part of him wanted to step back, but another part whispered that stepping back now might scare her more. So he held up the lantern gently and kept his voice low. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. The alien mother flinched. Her arms tightened around her crying baby. She pushed herself farther into the hay, her body trembling. Jacob saw then that she was hurt. A deep cut ran along her shoulder, dark purple and glowing faintly at the edges. Her breathing was fast and shallow. The baby made another tiny noise, half cry, half whimper, and reached up to touch its mother's face with a glowing hand. Jacob felt a strange pull inside his chest. Fear was still there, yes, but stronger than fear was something else. He had lost his own family years ago. He knew what a parent looked like when they fought to protect their child. He knew that look very well. "You're cold," he said softly. "Both of you." The mother's eyes followed him as he stepped slowly toward an old wooden table where he kept blankets for the animals. He moved with caution, showing his hands every time he turned, so she would see he carried nothing dangerous. He lifted the blanket and held it out toward her. At first she hissed a soft, sharp sound like steam escaping a pipe. A thin blue light flashed across her skin like a warning. Jacob froze, waiting. The baby reached toward the blanket. The mother's head turned. She looked at her child, then back at Jacob, then at the blanket again. Her breathing slowed. Slowly, very slowly, she loosened her grip and extended one long, thin hand. Her fingers brushed the blanket. She pulled it toward herself, wrapping it around her child first, then around her own body. When the warmth touched her skin, her eyes softened. She whispered something in a strange language, gentle and melodic. Jacob did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. It was thanks. He kneeled a little so he wasn't towering over her. "What happened to you?" he asked quietly. The mother tried to speak, forming words carefully. "Fell ship, broken," she said. Her voice was soft, breathy, weak. "Bad sky, hunters." She looked toward the barn door, as if expecting danger at any moment. Jacob felt a chill. That had nothing to do with the cold. Hunters? Was someone or something coming for her? The mother looked at him again. Her voice cracked. "Baby, must live." Those simple words hit Jacob straight in the heart. He saw her pain, her fear, her love all in one moment. He nodded slowly. "I'll help you," he said. "I don't know how, but I will help." The mother blinked, and for the first time, her eyes held something new, hope. Jacob did not know it yet, but that single promise would pull him into a fight far bigger than his quiet farm. And it all began with a mother, a baby, and the coldest night he had ever lived through. For a long moment, Jacob and the alien mother simply stared at each other. The barn felt strangely quiet now. Even the animals seemed to hold their breath, as if they understood that something important was happening. The lantern light flickered between them, glowing on the silver-blue skin of the mother and the warm blanket wrapped around her baby. Jacob slowly placed the lantern on a crate and sat down on an overturned bucket. He did this not because he was tired, but to show he was not a threat. He made himself smaller, calmer, gentler. The mother watched, every movement with sharp eyes, but she no longer trembled as much. "Easy," Jacob said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." Her long fingers stroked the baby's small head, as if reassuring herself that her child was still safe. The baby's glow dimmed a little, calming down now that it was wrapped in warmth. Jacob noticed the mother's wound again. The cut on her shoulder was deep, glowing a dark purple that looked painful. He knew she needed help, real help. And even though he had no idea how to treat an alien injury, He could not just sit and watch her suffer. "Let me try to help," he said gently. The mother tensed, pulling the baby closer. Jacob raised both palms to show he carried nothing. "I only want to look at the wound," he explained. "I won't touch anything unless you say yes. Just let me try. You need to get better for your baby." The baby looked at Jacob with wide, shining eyes. Its tiny fingers opened and closed in the air, reaching toward him with a soft curiosity. The mother saw this and hesitated. Her eyes moved from her child to Jacob's face, to his steady, calm hands. She was fighting a battle inside, fear on one side, hope on the other. Finally, she gave a small nod. Jacob let out a quiet breath. He stood up slowly and walked to a small cabinet where he kept old medical supplies for the animal's bandages, antiseptic, clean cloths. His hands moved carefully, not wanting to alarm her. When he returned, he kneeled beside her at a respectful distance. "May I?" he asked softly. The alien mother looked into his eyes. Then, with a tired sigh, she moved the blanket slightly, revealing the wound. Jacob had never seen anything like it. The flesh around the cut shimmered as if tiny lights swam under her skin. The wound itself pulsed faintly. He did not know how her body worked, but pain was pain, no matter the species. "This might sting," he warned. He dipped a cloth into warm water and gently pressed it near the wound, not on it, just around it. The mother gasped, but she did not pull away. Her eyes stayed locked on Jacob. The baby reached out again, touching Jacob's sleeve with soft glowing fingers, as if sensing his kindness. Jacob's heart tightened at that touch. He had lived alone for so long that he forgot what it felt like to care for someone. But now, kneeling beside a strange mother and her glowing child, something warm began to break through the coldness inside him. "You're safe here," he said quietly. "I promise." The mother blinked slowly, her expression softening. She whispered something in her own language, gentle, almost like a lullaby. Then in broken English she said, "Human, kind." Jacob smiled a little, trying to be. He cleaned the wound as best as he could, wrapping it with fresh bandages. The mother winced but stayed still. When he finished, she looked at him with eyes full of something new, trust. But the moment of calm did not last long. A sudden flash of light swept across the barn wall. Jacob stiffened. That was not lightning. That was a searchlight. The mother tightened her hold on her baby. Fear returned to her eyes, strong and urgent. Jacob stood up quickly, his face set with determination. "Don't worry," he whispered. "You're not alone anymore." And for the first time in years, Jacob Turner meant every word. Asterisk the bright white beam of the searchlight cut across the night like a blade. It slid over the barn roof, then moved slowly across the fields. Jacob felt his stomach tighten. Someone was out there. Someone was looking for the source of the crash. The alien mother pulled her baby close, her glowing skin dimming with fear. Jacob could almost hear her heartbeat, fast, sharp, panicked. The baby sensed her worry and began to whimper, its small light flickering like a trembling candle. Jacob moved quickly. He went to the barn door and peeked through the cracks. In the distance, he saw shapes, 3 men walking across the snowy fields with flashlights and long tools that looked like metal rods. They were from the town. Farmers, hunters, maybe even local police. Jacob recognized their bright jackets. Even from far away, they must have heard the explosion too. The mother whispered something in her language, a short, sharp warning sound. Her eyes shone with terror. Jacob realized she wasn't only afraid of humans, she was afraid of being found. By anyone. "It's okay," Jacob whispered. "Just stay quiet." But even as he spoke, he knew things were getting worse. One of the men shouted, "The trail leads this way." Jacob's blood ran cold. They had found the glowing trail in the snow, the same one he had followed to his barn earlier. If they kept following it, They would reach his barn in minutes. He turned to the mother. "We have to hide you." She shook her head, confused and scared. "Hide? Why?" She asked in broken English. "Because they won't understand you." Jacob said firmly, "People fear what they don't know. If they see you, they might panic." The mother looked at her baby, then back at Jacob. She needed no further explanation. She nodded and tried to stand, but her injured leg buckled beneath her. Jacob rushed forward and caught her before she fell. "You can't walk like that," he said. "Let me help." She hesitated only for a moment, then gave a small nod. Of trust. Jacob guided her to a wooden hatch near the back of the barn. It led to an old storm cellar built by Jacob's grandfather. Few people even remembered it existed. Jacob pulled the hatch open, revealing a dark room below, cold and dusty but hidden from view. "You'll be safe here," Jacob said. The mother clutched her child and stepped down slowly, her glowing skin lighting the small space around her. Jacob placed the lantern beside her, giving her some light. She sat down in the corner, holding her baby tight. "Human, come back?" she asked softly. Jacob nodded. "I won't leave you. Just stay quiet." He closed the hatch gently, covering it with hay and a wooden crate. By the time he finished, the voices outside were getting louder. "Tracks end here," one of the men yelled. "Check the barn," Jacob's heart pounded. He had to act normal, calm. Harmless, innocent. He took a deep breath, brushed hay off his coat, and walked toward the barn door. The moment he opened it, 3 flashlight beams struck his face. "Jacob?" one man asked. "What are you doing out here?" Jacob forced a tired smile. The animals were restless. Thought maybe the cold got to them. "You hear that explosion earlier?" another man asked. Jacob nodded. "Sounds like it hit somewhere near the forest. Scared the whole barn half to death." The men stepped inside, their flashlights sweeping across the barn. Jacob's palms began to sweat. The hatch was only a few feet behind him. If they got suspicious, even a little, it would all be over. But the barn looked normal, quiet, still. Finally, one of the men sighed. "Probably a meteor. Let's keep checking the fields." They stepped back outside. Jacob waited until the beams of their flashlights disappeared into the snow before closing the barn door and leaning against it, breathing hard. Then he whispered toward the hidden hatch. "They're gone. For now." And in the cold air of the quiet barn, Jacob knew this was only the beginning of the danger closing in. Asterisk. The storm cellar stayed quiet long after the men from town left. Snow tapped softly against the barn roof, and the wind outside settled into a low, distant whistle. Jacob waited a few minutes to be sure no one else was coming. Only when the last flashlight beam vanished into the woods did he finally move. He lifted the wooden crate off the hidden hatch and brushed away the loose hay. His hands were shaking from both fear and cold. Slowly, he pulled open the hatch. A warm, faint silver glow rose from below. The alien mother looked up at him with tired, cautious eyes. Her child lay against her chest, glowing like a soft living lantern, its tiny breaths even and peaceful. Jacob felt relief wash over him. Even after all the tension, the mother and baby were safe. "You can come up now," he whispered. The mother hesitated, as if unsure whether she should trust the world outside again. When Jacob reached out his hand, not touching, only offering, she studied his face. Whatever she saw there made her trust him again. She climbed up carefully, still cradling her glowing child. Her injured leg trembling slightly. Jacob helped her stand and guided her to a pile of warm hay. She lowered herself gently, wincing as pain shot through her shoulder and leg. Jacob could see that the bandages he'd given her earlier were already soaking up dark purple liquid. Her wound needed more work. "I'm going to check your injuries again," he said softly. "Is that okay?" The mother looked at her baby, then nodded. "Help, Yes. Jacob gathered warm water, new cloth, and a small jar of healing salve he normally used for injured horses. He didn't know if it would work on alien skin, but he hoped kindness mattered more than understanding. He kneeled beside her, trying to keep his movements calm and small. The baby watched him with big bright eyes and reached out its tiny hand. Again, Jacob allowed the baby to touch his sleeve, and he smiled softly at the gentle glow spreading across its fingers. "That's right," Jacob whispered. "I'm not here to hurt either of you." The mother watched their small interaction, and something shifted in her expression, like a tiny, quiet weight lifting from her heart. Slowly, she loosened her protective grip on the baby, allowing it to rest peacefully in her lap while Jacob worked. When Jacob peeled back the bandage, he saw the wound clearly this time. The skin around it pulsed with dim purple light, but under the damaged flesh were thin glowing lines like veins of silver. The wound looked painful, but there was also a faint shimmering at its edges, as if her body was trying to heal itself. Jacob cleaned the wound gently. The mother hissed once, gripping his sleeve with her long fingers, but she did not pull away. She watched him closely, trusting that he was trying his best. "Almost done," Jacob said softly. He applied the salve around the wound. It hissed faintly against her skin, and her eyes widened at the strange sensation. But then the pulsing around the wound slowed. Her breathing eased. Whatever the salve did, it gave her relief. The mother whispered something in her own language, soft and warm. She touched her fingertips lightly to Jacob's chest. "Good. Heart," she said. Jacob felt a lump form in his throat. No one had said something like that to him in a long time. He nodded, unable to find words for a moment. He gently wrapped the wound in fresh cloth. The baby cooed softly and touched Jacob's hand again, its tiny glow warming his skin. Jacob chuckled softly. "You little star," he whispered to the child. "You're braver than both of us." The mother smiled, truly smiled for the first time. For a moment, the barn felt less cold, less empty, less lonely. But that warmth faded when Jacob heard something outside, a distant humming, low and unnatural, rolling across the frozen fields. The mother's eyes widened with fear. She clutched her baby tight again. Jacob stood quickly, his face turning serious. Someone else was searching. And this time, it wasn't from the town. The danger was coming closer. And Jacob knew he had just become part of something far bigger than his quiet farm. The humming sound grew louder, rolling across the frozen fields like a warning from the sky itself. Jacob felt the wooden floor of the barn vibrate beneath his boots. It was not wind, not a truck, not town searchlights. This sound felt alive, sharp, and cold, like a machine built for hunting. The alien mother held her baby close, her silver blue skin flickering with fear. Her eyes glowed brighter, scanning the dark barn as if expecting shadows to jump out at her. The baby was silent now, sensing the danger too. Its small light trembled against her chest. Jacob moved to the barn door and pressed his eye to a narrow crack. What he saw made him stop breathing. A tall, dark shape stood at the edge of the forest. Its body was thin but strong, with long limbs that bent in strange angles. A faint red glow pulsed in its chest, beating like a heart made of metal. It held something long in its hand, a weapon shaped like a spear, but glowing with shifting red light. The creature lifted its head, sniffing the air like a wolf searching for its prey. Jacob whispered, "They're here." The mother's face tightened with terror. She whispered a word Jacob had heard before, "Hunters." Jacob turned to her. "They're after you." She nodded quickly. "My people, chased, we run. They follow, never stop." Her voice cracked. "Baby, they take." Jacob felt his chest tighten with anger he didn't know he carried. "They'll have to go through me first." The mother grabbed his arm, shaking her head violently. "No, human die." Jacob knew she was right. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't armed. He was just a farmer with old tools and a quiet life. But he also knew something else. He couldn't hand a mother and child over to monsters. He moved quickly to the tool shelf and grabbed a long metal pitchfork. It wasn't much, but it was. Sharp, strong, and familiar in his hands. The humming outside grew deeper, heavier. The hunter stepped closer. Then Jacob saw more shadows moving behind it. 2 more hunters emerging from the forest like silent ghosts. Their red lights pulsed, brighter as they scanned the snow. Jacob felt his pulse racing. They're searching for the crash trail. The glowing snow path. The one that led straight to his barn. He had to act fast. He turned to the mother. "Hide in the cellar again. Don't make a sound." She wanted to argue, but she knew she couldn't protect her child if she was too weak to stand. She kissed the top of the baby's head, whispered a soft note in her language, and limped toward the hatch. Jacob helped her down and covered it with hay and crates as quickly as possible. The barn fell silent. The only sound left was Jacob's breathing, and the hunters approaching. A sudden crash shook the barn door. Jacob jumped back. The hunters were here. The door burst open with a violent blast, sending snow and splinters flying across the room. The tall shadow of the first hunter stretched across the floor. Its glowing red eyes locked onto Jacob, scanning him from head to toe. Jacob gripped the pitchfork with both hands. His knees trembled, but he didn't back away. The hunter tilted its head as if confused. It tapped its spear on the ground, releasing a sharp hum. The other 2 hunters entered behind it, moving with slow, deadly grace. One of them stepped closer, sniffing the air again. Its voice was a cold, metallic rattle. "Star Mother, here." Jacob's heart pounded hard. If they found the hatch, everything would be over. So he did the only thing he could. He stepped forward, placing himself directly in front of the hidden cellar. "You won't find anyone here," he said, forcing his voice to stay steady. "Just me." The hunters stared at him. Their eyes glowed brighter. One lifted its weapon. Jacob raised the pitchfork. This was madness. This was suicide. But he couldn't move. He wouldn't, because behind him, a mother and her child were counting on him. The first hunter lunged, and Jacob braced for the fight of his life. The first hunter lunged at Jacob with its glowing spear. But Jacob dodged to the side, the pitchfork swinging in a desperate arc. Metal clashed against metal as sparks flew. The hunter stepped back, surprised that a simple human dared to fight. Jacob's arm shook. His breath came in tight bursts. He could feel the weight of fear pressing on him, but he refused to run. Every second he bought meant 1 more second. For the mother and her baby to remain hidden. The hunters circled him. Their red lights glowed like burning embers in the cold barn. One hunter raised its spear again, preparing for the final strike. Then the floor beneath Jacob pulsed with a sudden burst of silver light. A burst so bright that the hunters froze. The cellar hatch glowed from beneath, as if a small star had been lit inside. The boards trembled, cracking with a soft rumble. The hunters hissed, stepping back, confused and angry. Jacob stared at the glowing light, heart pounding with worry. The hatch burst open. The alien mother rose slowly from below, carrying her baby high against her chest. Her skin glowed brighter than ever, shifting from blue silver to white gold. The baby's tiny hands shined with a light so pure it filled the entire barn. The hunters screeched, stepping backward, shielding their glowing red eyes. The mother stood tall, even wounded. Her voice, soft before, now rang with fierce strength. In her language commanding, powerful, ancient. The baby raised its tiny glowing hand, and the hunters stumbled as if pushed by an invisible force. Jacob watched, stunned. He had known they were not ordinary beings, but he had never seen their true power. The mother turned her gaze to Jacob, her eyes warm and full of gratitude. "Human. Protected child," she said softly. her voice trembling with emotion. "We repay." She lifted her hand, and the barn roof shuddered. Snow fell through cracks as a soft hum filled the air. Outside, hidden behind the forest trees, the remains of her crashed ship flared to life. A piece of it, a small round pod, rose from the darkness, floating toward the barn with silver energy wrapped around it. The hunters tried to flee, but the mother raised her hand again. A wave of shimmering light swept across the barn, knocking the hunters to the ground. Their red lights dimmed, turning black like empty glass. Silence fell. Only the gentle glow of the mother and child lit the barn. She stepped toward Jacob slowly. Every movement showed pain, but her eyes shone with peace. "You saved us," she said. "Heart brave. Heart good." Jacob felt a sting behind his eyes. He wasn't used to anyone saying things like that. He swallowed hard and nodded. "I did what anyone should have done." The mother shook her head. "No, many fear, many run, but you stayed." The small escape pod hovered beside them now, humming with soft energy. Its surface glowed with symbols Jacob didn't understand, but he knew what it meant. It was time for them to leave. The mother placed her hand on Jacob's chest. Her touch was warm despite the cold night. "Remember us," she whispered. "Won't forget," Jacob said quietly. "Not ever." The baby reached out to Jacob again, touching his hand with a soft golden glow. For a moment, Jacob felt warmth spread through his whole body, gentle and comforting. The baby gave a small, sweet sound, almost like a laugh. The mother stepped into the pod, holding her child close. The door closed slowly with a soft hiss. Silver light wrapped around the pod like gentle wind. Jacob stepped back as it began to rise, lifting off the barn floor. Snow swirled around it, forming tiny glowing rings in the air. The pod floated upward through the cracked roof and into the pod floated upward through the cracked roof. Night sky, shining like a rising star. Jacob watched it climb higher until it became a single bright point in the heavens, and then disappeared. The barn fell quiet again, cold, still. Jacob stood alone, but he felt something warm inside him, a small fire that no winter could ever freeze. From that night on, he would look at the stars differently. Somewhere out there, a mother and her child were alive, because he chose kindness over fear. And Jacob Turner knew, deep in his heart, that one day, when the stars were right, they would return.